Welcome back to the best division in football with your boys Authentic and The Beard. The best television show not on TV. Man, I'm feeling some type of way. Big shout out to Rich Homie Quan one more time, man. This was definitely a pretty interesting week 2 across the NFL and especially across the NFC East with the Commanders. Only team to win a game in the NFC East. Kind of interesting here. And there's a saying in the NFL that goes, this is why they play the games. A bunch of shocking teams at 2-0 right now. The Vikings, the Saints, the Bucks. Geno Smith and them Seahawks, man, putting up big numbers, but not on a scoreboard. Definitely in the passing department. The Pittsburgh Steelers are 2-0. And a couple of shocker 0-2 teams around the league. The Ravens, the Rams, the Bengals. Every team in the NFC South right now is 0-2 except the Houston Texans. The Titans, the Jags, and the Colts. All sitting at 0-2, but there's only one team in the NFC East that is sitting at 0-2 in the bottom of the whole damn division. Shout out to the nation. I know y'all in the building, man, but it's our New York Giants, man. And I got the best co-host in the country. I could see him backstage right now with a little funny little smirk on his face right now, ready to pop in. And I'm sure he's got a lot of shit to talk about after the Commanders took care of those Giants. So y'all welcome my brother from another, the left side to the strong side duo. The Beard is in the building. Let yourself in through the door, Mr. Beard. How's it going, my dog?
Oh, listen, I feel good. I feel good. It's interesting because I was on a live this morning for my reselling, and they asked me, they said, so you and Authentic, like, do you guys, like, give each other, like, is there a little bit more heckling and, you know, when you guys are playing each other and you guys kind of, like, you know, talk a lot of smack? And I was like, you know, I started thinking about it, I was like, not really. I was like, well, both our teams suck, and, like, they've sucked for a long time. So it's, I don't know. I don't really talk a lot of trash. I'm not big into trash talking. I'm more of a, you know, let it play out on the field. And then, you know, if somebody, you know, comes out a little sideways, I might have to put him on the straight and narrow. You know what I'm saying? There was a little bit of that on Twitter. You know, Commanders fans, I don't think they know what they want. I don't even think they know what's good for them anymore. Like, it's just kind of crazy. I saw a lot of C grades for Jaden Daniels out there on the interweb for this matchup, which was kind of funny, but, you know, we're going to get into that.
Not too bad.
Yeah. Not in my grading scale, but it was awesome. We went to the game. It was hot. Yeah, hot at the game.
Second and third quarter was brutal out there, man.
Big shout out to we got to link up with Sal, Chris Peace, and his wife Virginia were both there. We tailgated in the red zone parking lot, ran into a bunch of people at the game. It was a good game for being a bad game, right?
Yeah, it was kind of like yesterday's game between the Falcons and the Eagles. Like, started off slow and whatnot, but at least when it came down to the wire, you know, it was definitely interesting.
I'll tell you what the crazy part was. The crazy part was the entire stadium is filled, obviously, with you know, Commanders and Giants fans, and there's a sprinkle of few of all. We saw a Justin Jefferson jersey there. We saw some, obviously, you always see Cowboys fans at Commanders games. But when they showed that score to the Commanders, to the Cowboys Saints game, the entire stadium erupted.
Yeah, that was dope.
That was pretty awesome. I thought that, you know, when Jaden Daniels got hurt and then came back in the next play, the stadium also erupted again. There was also an interesting "Let's Go Redskins" chant at some point during the game. So it was interesting to be there. They changed the colors to the parking lots now since it's no longer FedEx Field. So, but yeah, it was a great experience. I mean, like, I didn't get to go to the game last year, so it was the first time I hadn't been in, like, I think it was like 13, 14 years. So it was good to be back out there, and then just kind of scoreboard watching throughout the day. And it, like you mentioned, it was just a lot of upsets in week 2, and it's going to be an interesting season. I mean, you got a lot of guys leading in statistical categories right now that you would not have in your bingo cards, as they like to say.
Baker Mayfield being one of them, Sam Darnold. I mean, nobody would have thought these guys would be at the top of the league right now as far as quarterbacks throwing the ball.
Yeah, so I'm super excited to talk about today's games. I mean, today about the games this week. Big shout out to everybody in the chat. We appreciate all the love and the support. Everybody checking us out on the YouTubes, in the YouTube's universe. I'm ready to talk some ball with my good buddy here, Authentic. There's a lot to talk about.
I am too. I know you. Yeah, these are the kind of weeks that you You strut into the week, everything feels better. You go to work, you got a job, you might get some extra work on your plate and be like, yeah, I'll take that for sure, no problem. But for a guy like me, with the New York Giants sitting at 0-2, it's been a tough
Bro,
week.
we
And I
hadn't
got a
won a
busy one here
game.
too.
We hadn't won a game since November.
Mm.
So it feels good.
Yeah, that's a good look for y'all. Well, let's start off with the game from last night, which was definitely a down to the wire, very interesting game. Kind of ended very similar to how our game ended. The Atlanta Falcons, they traveled to take on the Philadelphia Eagles, which me and you both had the Philadelphia Eagles as the front runner in this one. Picked all the same games last week, so definitely looking forward to talk about this one. So I told the Beard I was going to be a little bit long-winded today. He said, man, we've been podcasting for 6 years. I know what I'm doing here. I got you, bro. I got you. Sometimes he takes the driver's seat. Sometimes I'm sitting shotgun. But I think on this one, yeah, this Eagles game was very interesting. Giants Twitter obviously going really crazy in this one. The Falcons ended up winning this game in the last seconds of it, 22-21. The Eagles were favored by 6.5. The over-under was 47, just a couple of points under that. The last time the Eagles lost in September was in 2021. And I saw this one on First Things First today with Nick Wright, who dropped a lot of gems on this game. You know, and I know a lot of people don't get down with Nick Wright, but I do think he's a pretty knowledgeable guy. He has some extreme takes at times, but they were talking about this was the 7th most improbable win in the entire Next Gen Stats era. The Atlanta Falcons, when the Philadelphia Eagles were taken on that last drive around 2 minutes, the Atlanta Falcons had a 0.7% chance to win the game. And this game got really good late. We talked about that a little bit in the opener. Very slow burner in the first half. A lot of Bijan Robinson finished the day with 14 carries for 97 yards. He had over 70 yards in the first half, so they really got away from the run, although the game was tight throughout the whole third quarter. The Falcons as a team ran for 152 yards, 7-6 at the half, and just 4 Eagles possessions in the first half. I thought the Eagles played the better first half of both of these teams, but you couldn't tell on the scoreboard. The early turnover on downs in the first quarter from the Eagles. I thought Nick Sirianni was pretty aggressive throughout this game, but then got a little bit bipolar towards the end of it, especially on the late third down call, which we are going to get to. A couple of tush-push fourth down conversions. They don't seem to be missing a beat with those the tush-pushes too much now. You saw the first week, Cam Jurgens, Jalen Hurts having a little bit of issues with the snap and whatnot, but I think they really got, their chemistry kind of going into the year. And the Eagles defense is just still, it's a problem. I think it was the biggest problem of this game. You did have the big fourth down stop late in this game where C.J. Gardner-Johnson took his helmet off, but they did allow that penalty to get picked up. I thought he kind of said the helmet was coming off, like as he was making the tackle.
I don't know about that.
I don't know about that.
I saw the replay and I was like, that dude totally took his helmet off. He was tripping.
Yeah, and I think that moment kind of took over, and we did see the late penalty with Drake London as well, which just celebrating like machine gunning up in the air. I thought that the 15 yards was going to be added to the kickoff, which I don't know if that rule has changed or not. It was added to the extra point. I'm pretty sure that rule has pretty much been like that for the most part, but no pressure really on Kirk Cousins in this game outside of just one sack. They only had one quarterback hit in this game. They did have 17 pressures, but I do think with newly added defensive coordinator Vic Fangio, it's a very different style of defense. And, I remember Vic Fangio from like Miami days, and I thought, reputation can sometimes like exceed who you really are. I was talking to Sal about this in our group chat, and he was just like, man, a lot of the players when, Vic Fangio left, they didn't have a lot of good words to say for him, and he's relying on his front four to really get after the quarterback, and they're struggling right now. We know that front four on that defense has been a little bit revamped. No Hassan Reddick now, no Fletcher Cox to retirement, and you paid Bryce Huff to come in there and replace Hassan Reddick, who was a straight-up maniac 2 years ago. Last year, kind of came back down to earth, but was still getting after the quarterback. But Bryce Huff right now, his pass rush win rate, this reminds me of our edge rushers for the New York Giants. It's 6.7%. He's got 2 pressures through 2 games. Both the pressures came in this game. So he went through first week without any pressures. He's not even on the field for most of the snaps. He's only been on the field for 48% of the snaps through 2 games. They paid this guy $51 million on a 3-year contract. And Philadelphia right now, I think one of the biggest problems is they just don't got no dogs up front. I really wouldn't put the blame on Jalen Hurts in this game. We're going to talk about where the blame kind of lands on that last possession for the Philadelphia Eagles in a little bit here. But on Thursday, I had asked a question. I said, can Saquon Barkley put this team on his back if the passing game is not clicking? And this was before we knew A.J. Brown was not going to be playing in this game with the hamstring injury. Saquon didn't have a touch on that first drive, and I know a lot of people were like, what's going on here? And he's coming off a 3-touchdown game just a week ago where he was averaging 4.5 yards per carry. I thought the game plan for this one was going to be to just commit to that run in a heavy way.
You know what it felt like? It felt like last year. Remember the first game of the season last year? DeAndre Swift went absolutely ham.
Yep,
and then all of a sudden Nick Sirianni the Eagles just kind of like fell away from feeding DeAndre Swift. That's immediately what I thought of when I saw that first drive. I was like, oh, here we go. Nick Sirianni.
Yeah, that's exactly what it seemed like. And I mean, Sirianni is not the play caller. That's the interesting part about it, right? You brought in what's my dude that was with Dallas and went to the Chargers? Kellen Moore, right? You brought him in, and I know that he's a guy that he had ways to utilize Ezekiel Elliott. Saquon Barkley in this game, I thought the numbers were pretty good, but we saw the Steelers rush for 137 yards on them on Atlanta in week 1. Saquon leaves this game with 116 total yards, 22 rushes for 95 yards, 4 receptions, 21 yards. And I saw a fellow Giants Twitter guy, I guess we'll call him, saying that, oh, this is the same old Saquon Barkley, just getting stuffed up at the line and getting a bunch of lost yards behind the line of scrimmage. And he did have a couple of carries where he lost some yards. I do remember a 5-yard loss early on in this game, but to me, when I looked at the next-gen chart for Saquon Barkley in this game, it did not look like one of his normal charts. It looked more like what you would get out of a guy like Brian Robinson or maybe a guy like Devin Singletary. The home run, big run, never came in this game. He had 9 runs of 10 yards or more, though, but he had 0 of 15 or more. So that kind of goes to show you, what's going on with about half his carries. He was pretty much getting 10 yards. And they got to work on that RPO over there in Philly. You saw a few penalties where Saquon Barkley picked up 10, 12 yards, and they had to throw a flag and bring it back for ineligible man downfield. And we know how that happens with the RPO because these linemen don't really know if you're going to pass it or if you're going to run it. They end up getting a little bit too far down the field. But nonetheless, I thought it was very interesting usage by Saquon Barkley, but I thought he made the best of his carries. Mm-hmm. We're obviously going to talk about the situation at the end of the game, which, a lot of people are pointing the fingers, which seems to be like a big theme now. I don't remember it being like that back in the day when social media wasn't around in football, where it was like, that guy, the game is on him. You saw a lot of blame going around for Saquon Barkley, but before we get to that, what are your thoughts on this game just in general?
For me, the decision to not kick the field goal early in the game was kind of crazy. I immediately tweeted out, I was like, you got to take the points there. Just take the points. Like, everything about that fell off, and that I feel like it is going to kind of be like a common theme throughout some of these teams that lost this weekend in the NFC East is, those early points, whether you have the opportunity to score a touchdown and you only get a field goal, or, if you're not even getting the field goal, it just kind of feels like you're putting yourself in a hole, even though you're not necessarily like score-wise. So like that kind of stood out to me immediately. I thought Devonta Smith once again had a really good game, but they struggled to find another guy. I think the second leading receiver was Goddard with like 38 yards. And I mean, the other guy too, who nobody was even talking about. Everybody was talking about either Johnny Wilson, Paris Campbell, or Jahan Dotson being like the guy to kind of step up in this game. And between the three of them, they had 1 catch and 6 yards, and that was Jahan Dotson. So there was the other guy who, I'm going to be honest with you, I know a lot of football, and I know a lot of guys. I didn't know anything about that other guy, the white guy. What's his name, Covey?
I hadn't heard him. I hadn't heard of him until this season. Britton Covey, he had 6 receptions. They were running a lot of bubble screens with him. Very predictable, only 23 yards, 6 targets on the day. And I think you were right. Yeah, Dallas Goddard with 38 yards on 3 receptions.
Yeah, so like that was another thing that kind of like stood out to me, obviously. And then I remember, following the game in the beginning of the early on Twitter, and people were like, Jalen Hurts looks slow, and Jalen Hurts doesn't have the ability to run the ball anymore. And then I thought Jalen Hurts had a lot of really good runs in this game. I thought,
in the middle chunk of the game, especially the third quarter, he was killing it. But I do think he has lost a step, but I think that's because he's continuously bulking up, and he's a guy that is fairly durable at the quarterback position.
Yeah, but he made the plays when he needed to for this team. It was one of like these odd games this weekend where it felt like the momentum, they were killing the momentum themselves, just like with these little mistakes throughout the game. And they never, I'm missing that Philadelphia Eagles explosiveness. We had a conversation early on in the preseason where I was telling you about how somebody tried to say that Washington had more explosive players than Philadelphia. And I said, obviously, that's the craziest statement in the world.
Come on, what are we
But
talking?
I am I am kind of I feel like we're still waiting for that Philadelphia Eagles team to come back that could score 40 points like that. You know what I'm saying? And they have the talent to do it.
At the end of the season, 5 of the last 6 games, they completely struggled.
Yeah, and so that was really interesting to me, obviously. And then I don't want to talk too much about the end of the game. I thought the red zone situation was kind of interesting because we're so used to the red zone maniac. We're so used to the Eagles being one of the best teams in the red zone. They were 1 for 3 I believe in the red zone, and then Atlanta was 2 for 5 in the red zone. I thought Kirk Cousins looked shaky at first. They had him under center a lot more in this game, but as the game went along, I saw this level of comfort kind of go back up, which is interesting, obviously, because it's prime time too. We all know Kirk Cousins, kind of his
struggles in prime time.
Yeah, his struggles in prime time.
I have the Eagles at 2 for 5 in the red zone.
And then Atlanta for 1 for 3.
Atlanta was 1 for 3,
okay.
Yeah. And you're right about Kirk Cousins looking a little bit shaky in the beginning, but I thought the good part was that we saw him under center this week. Last week, he only took 1 snap under center the entire game. So to see him get under center and get that drop back, back in order, I thought a lot of people were kind of criticizing his arm talent and stuff early on, but I think Kirk Cousins is the kind of guy that has never really had zip on his throws and great velocity. He's a guy that wins with timing and, just reading the defenses properly and stuff like that. So I thought he's looking more like his normal self now. And I thought by the time he got to the third quarter, you were seeing the, regular Kirko we're used to seeing.
Yeah, and I think he utilized a lot of different receivers in this game, too, between the running backs. Obviously, Bijan caught some balls. Drake London had a good game. Kyle Pitts, who only had 1 catch in the first half, ended up having a nice little second half on a couple of plays. And then Darnell to the Mooney. I mean,
Darnell Mooney went crazy.
He had a couple of really big plays. I want to say he actually led the team in receiving in this game for them.
He had 1 catch leading up to that last drive.
Yeah, and so like it just kind of goes to show you that both of these teams, it looked like a week 1 game in week 2. Even though I know week 2 is still kind of the same thing, but you're expecting a little bit more. And there was a lot of that across the league in week 2 where, I was showing you the scoreboard when we were at the game. It was a lot of these 16-13s and 17-14s throughout most of the day. So it just, both of these teams looked like they couldn't finish throughout the game. And I thought that when we got down to the end of the game, you saw a little bit better execution from both of these teams. And then at the end, it just was a collapse, basically, in my opinion, by the Philadelphia Eagles on both sides of the ball, and not just by the players, but by the coaches also.
Yeah, you definitely talked about red zone there. I thought another thing that really hurt the Eagles in this game were the penalties, 9 penalties in this one. They won time of possession by over 10 minutes. And I thought Jalen Hurts really had a good, he let the game come to him kind of. And this is it's not like a great game or anything, but it is a game where you can win. But a couple of plays left out there, especially on that last drive, I thought. Finished the day 23 of 30 for 183 yards, 1 touchdown. The late pick trying to force the ball down the field, obviously, when they don't have, much time left on the clock. He was only sacked 1 time, 13 rushes for 85 yards. A lot of that came in that third quarter where he was just going crazy. He really put that team on his shoulders, but I thought he started off just a little bit too slow in this one. But I thought, towards the end of this game, and we can get to talking about what happened there at the end with the Saquon Barkley drop, it's very interesting because, like I said in the opening, right, Nick Sirianni, I thought, was trying to be aggressive throughout this game to a fault in a way, like trying to be a little bit too aggressive. And the game comes down to a situation where there's 1 minute and 46 seconds left in the game. It's 3rd and 3. The Eagles are up 18-15. They got a 3-point lead here. The Falcons have 0 timeouts. And I thought that there was a great coaching battle going on during this moment in time. I don't know if you remember at the 2-minute warning, Raheem Morris, he tried to do a thing where he jumped off sides to try to make it from 3rd and 1 to 1st down.
Yeah, and they
so that way they would, have less downs to be able to try to stop him and whatnot. And it would help out the Falcons. And Nick Sirianni came on the field and he was like, hell no, we're not going for that. Decline that right away. It goes to show you that coaching battle. Now, I was looking at some stuff from Warren Sharp as well. And these guys who play the role of analytics on the sidelines, I think they need to be more of a presence on the sidelines, especially when we're talking about the Philadelphia Eagles. And I'm going to get to some of these numbers, but the Philadelphia Eagles have folded in these type of situations more than a team like them should. Now, the Falcons had 0 timeouts. They're right down there on Atlanta's 10-yard line. And Sirianni, after the 2-minute warning trick from Raheem Morris, he tries to draw them off sides. And I thought it was such a brilliant play. He almost got Matthew Judon to jump off sides. He has Jalen Hurts call a strong cadence, and right when he calls the strong cadence, they sent Goddard in motion. So it makes it feel like there's movement, and now you can go. Judon almost jumped into the neutral zone, but he didn't, and he got back. They ended up calling a timeout. They let it wind all the way down. They ended up calling a timeout. Now, the final play, and we'll get this graphic on the screen so we can get the chat ready to go and see what they think about it. Play action pass to Saquon Barkley on 3rd and 3. And Saquon just completely, literally drops the ball. Because if he can catch this pass, this game is all but over. And the pass was right on him. Good throw from Jalen Hurts. He got it out early enough. You could tell that Saquon had enough room to be able to catch that, cut that up, and probably get like 2 yards past the first down marker. I always, like, as a wide receiver, right, when I played, I never liked catching the ball palms up. I never liked that. I'm always a diamond catcher. I feel like you got a much better chance to not drop a pass when you catch with the palms towards the quarterback. And you saw Saquon with the palms up, drops the ball. Now, Saquon, people have been talking about this stat on Twitter and on different podcasts all day long, has the most drops of any running back since 2021. I've heard some conflicting statements that he's either first or he's second. Nonetheless, he has 16 drops since 2021, with the most in one season being 6, which from a running back, that's not a good thing. Now, Saquon came out straight up, took ownership for this one. He said, I dropped the ball and let my team down today. Shouldn't have put the defense in that position. If I make that catch, the game is over. Relaxed and went back to my old habits. And damn, did that make me think about the New York Giants when he said that. I thought it was a great play call, is what he said. I just have to make that catch. And we know Kirk Cousins goes down the field. He went 6 plays, 70 yards in 1 minute, 5 seconds. And this is where Mooney started to go off. He had the 21-yard catch, the 26-yard catch. Then Drake London had the 6-yard catch and the 7-yard touchdown. Kirk Cousins, 23 now, fourth quarter comebacks, 29 game-winning drives. And then you get Jesse Bates with the interception to seal it on Jalen Hurts. Now, the Eagles lost 3 games last year while leading going into the last 2 minutes of a game. And I'm sure that is a statistic that Kirk Cousins absolutely likes. But I saw Warren Sharp breaking this down, and this is mind-boggling to me. And if you guys don't know about Warren Sharp's new podcast, go check it out. Just put in your YouTube search bar Warren Sharp. When it comes to a numbers standpoint, a lot of Giants fans don't like him because he be putting out a lot of negative numbers about Daniel Jones. But when it comes to numbers, this guy is one of the best. And I think he needs an NFL job, because if he was on the sidelines, this would not have happened. He tweeted out today, he said, just a reminder of every Eagles run needing 3 or fewer yards. It was 3rd and 3. They had 7 situations in the game like that where it was 3 yards or less. They were 7 of 7, bro.
Bars.
The one play on the 8th one, he decides to pass the ball. Now, for me, I don't think that it's an egregious play call as far as going for the pass, because sometimes these analytic departments and these coaches and these teams, they're on it, and they know that run is coming. So I'm not that angry at the pass on 3rd and 3. But what I'm angry about is, if you are going to pass it on 3rd and 3, you should have thought already that this is going to be 2-down territory. Now you're leaving a little bit more time left on the clock, about a good 40 seconds here. Because if you run the ball there, Atlanta has no timeouts. You can trickle it down from 140 damn near to a minute. And then you go for it on 4th down. You might take up 5-6 seconds. You're looking at Kirk Cousins driving the field 95 yards, down by 3, with no timeouts left, rather than getting that ball back with like 1:40 left in the game. To me, it's a major mistake. And if it was me, especially, this is in hindsight for me, because when you're watching the game live, these coaches, everything is happening so fast, man. I was on the sidelines at Maryland last week. there's no time to even think. You have to be programmed to be able to understand how these situations work and be prepared and be ready. And the Philadelphia Eagles weren't ready. In that situation, with you running the ball, I'll give you the examples of what the situations were. 4th and 3, Hurts ran for 23 yards. 3rd and 2, Hurts ran for 12. 2nd and 1, Barkley ran for 5. 4th and 1, Hurts ran for 3. 2nd and 1, Hurts ran for 2. 1st and 1, Hurts ran for a touchdown. 3rd and 1, Hurts ran for a first down. In that situation, you got to just run the ball back to back and drain as much clock as you possibly can. That's how I'm looking at it. So I got to put the bulk of the blame on Nick Sirianni here. But honestly, your team just didn't do enough. Mm-hmm. I don't even really feel right pointing the finger at Saquon Barkley too much or Nick Sirianni, because I think he just tried to kind of catch them off guard just a little bit. But, man, if you run it twice, man, you're looking at 55 seconds. And think about what that does to you mentally. Eli Manning and Peyton Manning talked about it when Eli was in the Super Bowl the first go-round, that you would rather be down by 4 rather than 3, because you know you got to drive the field and get the touchdown. When you got that 3 in your mind, you're thinking, hey, man, let's just get in field goal range and try to make this kick. This was, like you said, a complete collapse. Vic Fangio and his defense, another nugget that I got from Warren Sharp, on that last drive, they did not blitz Kirk Cousins on any one of those downs. And I don't know if you remember when we were talking about this. I can't remember if it was on Giant Overreaction or on here. But when they put in Malik Willis for the game in week 1 for the last 2 plays to try to throw a Hail Mary, what did they do?
They brought the house.
And that frightens a quarterback and makes you get rid of the ball faster. So just a mental, a physical, on-the-field type of collapse. Since week 15 of 2023, the Eagles are 2-3 when leading in the final 2 minutes of a game. The rest of the NFL through all of 2023 was 90-11. And I saw that on First Things First as well, and I just couldn't believe it. Like, you're talking about a 90% winning chance, and how in the hell are you a team like the Philadelphia Eagles and you sitting up there at 2-3 when you're leading going into the last 2 minutes?
Yeah, so that's where I'm kind of where I'm at. Like, I don't really want to blame anybody, right? Because I thought you pointed this out a little bit earlier in tonight's show, where it's like there's so many things that go wrong throughout a game. It's really hard to be the one guy reason why your team loses, right? Like, it's not easy to do that. Should Saquon have caught the ball? Absolutely. Did Saquon take, full blame for this? 100%, right? To me, that's the easy way out. To be like, oh, if Saquon catches that pass, game's over, da-da-da, right? I mean, shoot, they had a 0.7% chance to win at that point anyways. Like, I mean, still, who knows what could have happened. Like, was it a very important play in the game? Absolutely. But he should have never been put in that situation. That's my whole thing, right?
Yeah.
So, like, I don't even want to just blame Sirianni. I just feel like blaming the entire coaching staff. And I pointed out one reason, you pointed out another reason. So, for me, you kick that field goal early in the game, it changes the outcome at the end of the game anyways. But you decide to go for it on 4th down in the first quarter for no apparent reason, right? Kick the field goal, get the 3 points. You're doing too much, in my opinion, right there, okay? Then to pass the ball on 3rd and 3, that makes no sense. And then, like you said, again, I mean, it was a good play call. I'm not mad at the play call, right?
Yeah,
I like the design. It's just a situational football to me. When you're in that situation, you got to run the ball. It just makes sense. You drain the clock. You put yourself in a position like, I don't understand why you would. And then Nick Sirianni says, oh, well, I thought he was going to drive the ball down the field with 0 timeouts, then that's how he was going to beat us, right? But then we get to the last point that you made, which is one of the big things I had on my notes. Like, bruh, you got to go at Kirk Cousins' neck on that last drive. Yeah. And then the worst part about it was, okay, maybe you don't do it for the first couple of plays, but then you see what they're doing. You got to adjust right then and there and go at them.
3 plays, they got down into the red zone. Darnell Mooney caught those 2 passes, but the thing is they had time left on the clock. Darnell Mooney didn't even get out of bounds on one of them after he picked up 21 yards. He got tackled in the middle of the field. So if you have less time on the clock, they don't operate the same.
Yeah.
Right? And then when they get down to the red zone, he tries to send a blitz. I did see Emmanuel Acho talking about this earlier. And he talked about, they blitzed Kirk Cousins in the 3rd quarter, and that's when he got them over the top with Darnell Mooney one-on-one. So Vic Fangio just playing scare ball, and we know scare money don't make no money.
And then the last part about it was the one thing that I don't think anybody's been talking about is the Eagles had a chance there at the end, right? Like they made a couple of plays, and then I thought that they forced the ball downfield too early. Devonta Smith kind of ran a sloppy route on that interception too.
I thought the same thing.
So
he was a little underneath the safety, a little bit.
Yeah.
And I see what Jalen Hurts was trying to do, but you need your receiver to undercut that and get there. Otherwise the result is what we're gonna, what we saw.
So like once again, it's kind of like a little bit of bad things all happening at once. But I thought that they got a little too aggressive too early in that final possession. I thought they had an opportunity. They have a great field goal kicker in Jake Elliott. I thought they had an opportunity to kind of, be a little bit more methodical at that last possession instead of attacking downfield very early on. So for me, it was just, if I had to put the blame, it would just be overall coaching. The entire coaching staff of the Philadelphia Eagles put their players in a bad position from the beginning of the game all the way to the last play of the game. So for me, that's kind of where I would put the blame.
Absolutely. And we know that winning definitely solves everything, and a coach's job is to put his players in the best position to succeed. And I'm not saying that, that play call didn't give Saquon an opportunity. At the end of the day, he dropped an easy pass. But if you want to put them in the best, we're not talking about a good situation. The best situation would have been to just run the ball 2 times. And a lot of people are praising, Kirk Cousins' game because he did put up some pretty damn good statistics when you look at it at the end of the game. Kirk Cousins was 20 of 29 for 241 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions, a QBR of 75, and he was only sacked 1 time. But going into that last drive of the game, their numbers between him and Jalen Hurts were damn near identical. Kirk Cousins was 15 of 23 for 171, 1 touchdown, 1 sack. And Jalen Hurts was 23 of 27 for 170 with 1 touchdown and 0 interceptions and 1 sack. So these were identical games from the quarterbacks. But, the winning, I think, really puts Kirk Cousins over the top in this one. But, yeah, I'm with you on this. I think if we got to have a hierarchy of blame, I got to look towards the coaching staff. And then it trickles on down through the defense, through Saquon Barkley. I think that the least amount of blame in this game would be on Jalen Hurts. I think he played a pretty decent game outside of that interception late, like you said, maybe forcing it down the field a little bit too early. And they still had a couple of timeouts, too.
And a couple of things from the chat on the Philadelphia Eagles. Big shout out to Door Gunner for the $5 super chat. Says, Howie about names and not fit. Thanking Howie for the 3rd pick next season. Commanders cut red zone penalties in half. They blow the Giants out on Sunday. That's definitely something we're going to talk about, as when we get into that game. But I
agree with what he's saying right there. I mean, the red zone penalties kicked y'all ass in that game.
But
the
as
thing
far
about
as the third
Howie
pick,
and names not fitting, I saw Acho talking about that as well. He blamed this on Howie Roseman. The whole thing, he blamed it because of this reason right here. Like, you're getting all these players that don't necessarily fit the scheme, and defensively, I 1,000% agree with that. Not bringing back Hassan Reddick, I think, really hurts them. Their interior defense, they have drafted, well. It's just these guys aren't quite developed and ready to be, getting after a quarterback in a Super Bowl type of contending fashion. So maybe it starts to click a little bit later for them. Their linebackers are in struggle mode right now. Who's the linebacker they brought in? Was it Devin White that's sitting on the bench now?
Yeah, Dave's a healthy scratch in this game.
Crazy, definitely crazy.
And big shout out to Door Gunner for the second $5 super chat. Says Sirianni stinks and has no leadership. Eagles lack chemistry. When things are good, they are great, but as soon as they face adversity, they fold.
It's been like that. It's been like that as of late. I mean, I can't dismiss that they were a Super Bowl team just a year ago and got hit with the juggernaut with Patrick Mahomes. Jalen Hurts had an incredible game, over 330 yards total in that one, but just couldn't get over the hump. And now it's like your pieces aren't as good as they were when you made that Super Bowl run back 2 years ago. So got to find a way to adjust. And I think if Nick Sirianni can't get it together this year, I think he's already on the hot seat just a little bit. It's getting a bit warm, but going into next year, I think the Eagles have good personnel. You obviously got to upgrade some things on defense. Rookie corners kind of struggling in this game, and I thought that those were 2 excellent picks in the first 2 rounds with Quinyon Mitchell. You even got to see Cooper DeJean in this game because Mitchell ended up getting hurt. But, the timing is not aligning, and the NFL is all about timing, man. When you're building a roster, the New York Giants are suffering from it in the worst way possible right now. I do think that Howie is still one of the better GMs in the league. He's got a very gutsy approach where he goes out there and he gets the players, he brings them in. And I do think offensively they have a good fit. Like if A.J. Brown is out there on the field to give you the explosive plays you needed in this game, this one's probably not as close. But you're relying on Devonta Smith to be the wide receiver one, and they really don't got any other guys. The Beard talked about that all last season. Like, they got to find a guy for that slot wide receiver role. I don't know why Jahan Dotson is not really working out. Maybe he's got to get a little bit more accustomed to the system. He's only been there for 2 weeks and some change. I mean, we just got to monitor the situation and see how it is. But if you're at week 6, week 7, and things are looking like this, and we know A.J. Brown's going to be out for a little bit of time here, it's definitely going to be time to hit that panic button in Philadelphia, the team that I think, is going to win this division.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting next couple of weeks without A.J. Brown, that's for sure. And I was actually a big Nick Sirianni guy. Like, I kind of liked his approach early on, but I think, I don't know, it's tough right now. There's been a lot of question marks that he's put on himself. He's kind of put a target on himself by, some of his coaching decisions, on the field, off the field, as far as his staff goes. And then obviously with, the way that he carries himself, post game, during the game, and pre-game. So he's put himself in this situation. It's going to be interesting to see
I
how
think we're looking at 3 coordinators now on both sides of the ball in 3 years.
Yeah, but appreciate the back-to-back $5 super chats, Door Gunner. Thank you very much.
Big facts. Definitely appreciate you supporting the channel. All right, that's a wrap on the Philadelphia Eagles game, man. I enjoyed that game last night. I was on the edge of my seat throughout that entire game. And if you want to see the compilations of the throws from Jalen Hurts and the compilation of Saquon Barkley's carries in that one, we uploaded them on the channel last night. Definitely give those a view if you want. But let's get off into this next game, man. I'm definitely looking forward to this one and talking, a little Giants, little Commanders with you. We did this on the Giant Overreaction the other day. Big shout out to everybody who pulled up for that stream. But let's get right into it, man. The Giants traveled down to Northwest Field to take on the Washington Commanders. All right, Beard, so I'm going to just kind of set this one up for you a little bit. I'm really curious to hear what you got to say on this game. The Giants ended up taking the L 21-18. They fall to 0-2, excuse me, because 2-0 would have been extremely crazy. Commanders go to 1-1. The Giants are quickly at the bottom of the division. First loss for the Giants in Washington since 2021. Jaden Daniels gets his first NFL victory. The Giants have started now 0-2 for 9 of the last 12 seasons. We got our first opening drive touchdown, which that's a bonus, and I thought the offense played a pretty decent game outside of a few mistakes. And the Giants, everyone's been talking about this statistic here, became the first team in NFL history to score 3 or more touchdowns, allow 0 touchdowns, but still found a way to lose the game to one of the worst teams, a team that we have owned for about 4 years now. I just don't understand it, the Washington Commanders. Now, I definitely want to talk about this defense just a little bit here, and I'm going to talk about the running game for the Giants and for your squad. I thought Deonte Banks was, like, in an unsung way, one of the best players for the Giants in this game. He definitely held Terry McLaurin in check, had a day in coverage, only allowed 6 receptions for 22 yards. But the Giants secondary is just, we're trash in the secondary right now. And you're seeing a bunch of shuffling pieces. I thought that bringing in Adoree Jackson was going to shore up that cornerback 2 spot a little bit, a guy who has experience with the Giants already, but has not really been seeing the field that much. And I don't know if that's because this new Shane Bowen defensive scheme, which Adoree Jackson has a little bit of experience in that scheme as well when he was in Tennessee, but they did part ways with him the year after Shane Bowen became the defensive coordinator. But the secondary, and not really in an extreme way allowing Jaden Daniels to throw the ball down the field, but I just thought in the middle of the field, like allowing Zach Ertz to do what he did in this game, 62 yards on 4 receptions. He caught all 4 of his targets. And the way that they just couldn't stop the run. And this is what I really want to talk about here. And we heard Joe Shane talking to Frank Gore. And when Frank Gore was like, but Saquon's like one of those guys, man. You sure you're going to part ways with that guy? And Joe Shane goes, the data shows a decline for running backs after the age of 27. And you hear all these sayings about running backs, a running back contract can cripple a franchise. The worst thing you can do is pay a running back. And it's just some shit that does not make any sense in my mind because running backs are way down on the pay scale. I don't understand how 10 to 12 million or even 8 to 12 million can cripple a franchise. This is how I look at it. Are you a good football player? Do you bring value to the team? We need to fix the market and find a way to pay players based on the value that they bring to the team. That even goes to the quarterback situation for me as well. You got Trevor Lawrence, who just signed one of the biggest contracts in NFL history before Dak Prescott signed his contract. That man is 0-7 in his last 7 games. And I'm not doubting him as a quarterback, but it just goes to show you that the way that the scale is being tipped in the favor of different positions is truly unfair, because right now in the first 2 weeks of football, teams are finding ways to run the rock and win games like that. And like I said, it's, are you a good football player? So y'all know over here we talk about RTDB. I want to add a STFU to the front of it. Shut the fuck up and run the damn ball. Okay? Because I saw Austin Eckler at the age of 29 giving the New York Giants problems. I saw Saquon Barkley on the field last night with the Philadelphia Eagles, and he looked like the best player on the field to me at the age of 27. The Commanders straight up just ran the ball right down the middle of our defense. There has been a lot of talk and speculation right now about what the New York Giants should do going into the offseason, especially from the people that think that this is a foregone season. At just sitting at 0-2, a lot of people think this season is over, and are you going to try to off some pieces before the trade deadline? And I love me some Dexter Lawrence, right? But what he is doing on the field is not showing up in the W column, and that is what everybody complained about with the running back contract that was less than $12 million, and we know Dexter Lawrence makes a lot more money than that. It has nothing to do with the player, and it's all about the future of the team. They ran the ball right down the middle. 35 rushing attempts total. Beard, I'm just going to give you one of these for that, because I know you like that. That's your number right there. Mm-hmm. Austin Eckler, 85 yards on 11 touches. Brian Robinson had 17 rushes for 133 yards. You brought to my attention at the game, it was his first 100-yard game of his career, right?
Yep. And the most yards by a Washington running back, I think, since 2021.
And it had to happen against my New York Giants.
Oh, yeah, of course.
And it is since 2021. I do have those numbers up here, too. And I talked about this on the Giant Overreaction. The last time a Shane Bowen defense allowed more yards was in week 1 of 2022 versus the New York Giants. You know who the running back was that day? It was Saquon Barkley. 164 yards on the ground, had the 2-point conversion to seal that game, and literally gave Brian Daboll his nickname of the Balls, right? They're like, oh, we got the ballsiest coach in the whole entire league. He ends up winning Coach of the Year. Things are looking great for the New York Giants after that year. Now, that is the only other time a Shane Bowen defense has allowed more than 200 yards rushing. And now we get that guy. You saw Brian Daboll in Hard Knocks showing his phone to Joe Shane. Look at this guy. The low amount rushing yards per game. He's got the best red zone defense, all of that stuff, which the red zone defense did show up in this one. That bend, don't break shit showed up. But the New York Giants defense is still just broken. And the Giants scored the 3 touchdowns, still lose this game. You let the Commanders come down the field and get 6 red zone possessions? It was 6 red zone possessions. 7 field goals. This kid, Austin Siebert, was perfect on the day. The Commanders, I thought this was interesting. They went from 100% in the red zone in week 1 to 0% in week 2. So they got to get that together. The Giants ended up, did we lose the time of possession? The Commanders won time of possession by a whole quarter.
Yeah.
Like, what is going on? And the Commanders had the 6 penalties with inside the 10-yard line, which they were pretty much giving us an alley-oop to win this game. And I thought you guys played definitely not your greatest game. If I had to grade your whole team, outside of like Bobby Wagner, Brian Robinson, the rest of this rushing attack with Austin Eckler, everybody else up there kind of gets like a D-, at best a D+. But before I go off into a bag, what were your thoughts on the game? We got to sit next to each other at this one. Got some real good tickets, man. Big shout out to the homie Junior one time. He blessed us, sitting right there in 116. Great view around the 30-yard line. Could see both sides of the field. What were your thoughts on this one, bro?
Well, listen, there's a lot to digest here. I kind of like broken this down into big plays and stats, okay, and some thoughts. First of all, shout out to Authentic, who tweeted out at halftime, this is the worst defense I've ever seen in person in my life. And these wasn't talking about the Giants. They're talking about the Commanders.
I might have not been talking about a professional team either. I might have been talking about high school. I might have been talking about Pee Wee, because it was terrible.
Yeah, listen, everything that I have been saying since the beginning is evident. It is clear as day, right? offensive line, the wide receivers, and the Washington defense, specifically the secondary, okay? It's just it's screaming bad, okay? First of all, Malik Neighbors is an absolute guy, okay? He is a guy, there were some big plays in this game that altered the outcome of this game. Obviously, we're going to talk about the whole kicking situation, not the good kicking situation, but the bad kicking situation at some point in this recap here. But big shout out to Washington. I mean, listen, we this is our 5th kicker since the preseason, since training camp. We finally found a guy, our 5th kicker since training camp. Because the original kicker that we signed, who we thought was going to be our guy, got sued for fondling stewardess on an airplane or something like that. So we kicked him off. Then we brought in the 2 other guys, and those 2 guys weren't cutting it. And then we had to bring in another guy. We traded a 7th-round draft pick for, which we got back because we cut him after the first game. And this guy comes in off the street and goes 7 for 7, breaks the record for most kicks by a Washington player in the history of the franchise in his first game, and then hits a game-winning kick on top of that. So shout out to that guy, Austin Seibert. But I was called
Seibert, not Siebert.
Yeah, I was calling him Sorbet in the preview show because that's how unaware I was of who he was. Obviously, the Singletary fumble was a huge play in this game. I mean, that kind of changed things. I thought the Giants were on their way to really putting this game out of reach based upon the way that the Commanders were playing at that point.
12-9, that was the opening drive of the second half.
Yep, and I thought that, obviously Jaden Daniels made a huge play to Noah Brown on that last drive. I thought that was probably the biggest play of his young career up to that point. Brian Robinson on the run where he kind of just we thought he was going to get the first down. I'm in the stands like this, give him the first down symbol, and all of a sudden he just comes out of nowhere and he goes for a 20, 30-yard gain. So I thought that was a really big play in the game. Obviously, the field goals, just to be able to go down there and kick those field goals. We got sacked 5 times in this game and didn't punt once.
Yeah.
I don't think people really understand how crazy that is, right? Because there are 2 things that kill a drive: penalties and sacks.
Yep.
And to get sacked 5 times in a game and not punt, I don't know if there's anybody has dug this up yet, but I'd like to know if that's ever happened before, because that is very difficult to do. And that's the one thing about Jaden Daniels. Yes, some of those sacks are on him. Yes, Jaden Daniels missed some open receivers in this game, and that's going to be something that, he's going to continue to work on. But the yards that he loses on sacks are so minimal in comparison to other quarterbacks. It's not like he gets sacked and it's 3rd and 17, or he gets sacked and it's 2nd and 15. He's getting sacked and it's a 1 yard, 2 yard, maybe a 3 yard sack, right?
Yeah.
He's that's what's,
man. He for a smaller frame quarterback like he is, he's fighting all the time. And I think he's got to find a way to find balance with that, because we saw the injury in this game too. So you don't want to be taking those big hits. But I do agree with you. We saw it last year with Sam Howell. I mean, it'd be 2nd and 17 so much.
Oh, the difference between this team and the last couple of teams, I've seen people out here just trying to dog Cliff Kingsbury. I mean, there was a couple of plays in this game that Authentic and I looked at each other and was like, damn, that is a hell of a play design right there. The Austin Eckler one.
He had the best play. The screen back to Austin Eckler where he just showed everything to the right, jet sweep to the right. He rolled Jaden Daniels to the right, then he throws it back. As soon as he threw it back, I was just like, oh, my, here we go. And then he jump kicked, what's my man, Andrew Phillips, knocked him out.
You called it the double dragon.
Yeah, bro. It's a great play design, though, man. I've really never seen nobody run something like that in the NFL where all that motion and all that influence goes to your right. I thought it was the difference in the 2 offensive play callers in that game.
But this is the thing, is when was the last time over the course of the last few years where you've seen Washington sustain drives?
Right.
We didn't punt. We drove down the field. Yes, I know it's the Giants. And, we could say the same thing about the Giants and Daniel Jones throwing a touchdown. Yeah. It's the Washington Commanders. But listen, you can only play who's across the field from you, okay? So for us to have 425 total yards of offense, I cannot tell you the last. I mean, there's been some. I hate this phrase. I don't use it quite often. But there was a lot of garbage time yardage from the Washington Commanders last year, okay, because they were always down. But 425 yards, 215 yards rushing. Do you know how long I've been screaming from the top of my lungs to see yards, 215 of them from rushing?
Yeah.
I mean, there's been times when we had 215 total yards of offense. So to see it just rushing, I'm trying to take things this season. I don't expect us to win a lot of games. I don't expect us to be in a lot of games. So for me, to see these things, I feel like this is foundation sort of stuff here. This is what I want to see from my team moving forward. You know, there's some things that I don't want to see. I don't want to see 10 penalties for 69 yards. I don't want to see 5 false start penalties in the red zone. I definitely don't want to see that. You know, I obviously 0 for 6 in the red zone. To go
Crazy.
0 for 6 in the red zone and win a football game, it's very mind-blowing to me, you know, like
to everybody, especially us, man. We scored 3 touchdowns and lost.
Yeah, and so like to me, in the time of possession, which you mentioned, like that's the type of football that I like. I like the running. I like the time of possession, especially when you have a really, really god-awful defense. That time of possession is so good to have because you're keeping your weakest part of your team off of the field. You're keeping them out of play. So you know, moving forward, you got to learn how to obviously convert on all of these good things because that's how you're going to win football games against better teams. You're going to have to be able to score touchdowns. But I mean, if you can score half of those, you know, maybe 4 of those in a couple of field goals, you're beating a lot of teams in the NFL this week, you know, just based off a point differential. So for me, there's a lot of good things to look at. There was a lot of bad things, obviously. Just to recap the roadmap really quick, because I don't know how we won based on the roadmap. I talked about third down, obviously, on the roadmap. It was a push. It was a good old giant overreaction. P in the chat.
Good stuff.
We were both teams were 50% on third down offensively. So, you know, it was kind of interesting how that all panned out. I said, you know, you want to make Daniel Jones be Daniel and not Dan. We wanted to hold him to 0 passing touchdowns. He went out there and threw 2 touchdowns. Obviously, Malik Neighbors was uncoverable by any player on the Washington Commanders defense.
He was cooking, man.
Yeah, he was cooking. We wanted to make sure Kayvon got 0 sacks. We did check that one right there. He had 0 sacks in this game. We wanted to force 2 turnovers. We had the 1 turnover, which ended up being a very critical turnover. I thought we were going to be able to get to Daniel Jones based upon the performance of the defense against Tampa Bay.
What was y'all 1 turnover again?
The fumble, the Devin Singletary fumble.
Oh, a forced
turnover.
Okay,
first turnover. Yeah. We didn't turn the ball over, which is another great thing. Jaden Daniels has 0 turnovers throughout the first 2 games. He is 2nd or 3rd in the National Football League in completion percentage too through the first 2 games as a rookie. So that's another really good thing to kind of, you know, keep an eye out on.
Yeah, 3rd in the NFL right now.
I thought we were going to get some sacks on Daniel Jones. We had 1 sack in this game. I said hold Malik Neighbors to under 60 yards. That absolutely didn't happen. That did not happen at all. So out of everything on the roadmap, we only had one thing that I had thought that we needed to do to win this game, and that was the holding Kayvon Thibodeau to 0 sacks. But you guys still ended up getting 5 sacks in the game.
Yeah, 2 of them came from the secondary, 2, I believe. Maybe 3 of them came from the secondary. So definitely utilizing those nickel corners and trying to get after the quarterback. I know Pinnock had 2 of them as well. You talked about Neighbors, man. Very, very big day for Malik Neighbors, and this was a battle of the 2 former LSU, you know, teammates and whatnot. And Malik Neighbors is absolutely him. I mean, I think that he's likely going to be the number 1 wide receiver in this class. It's looking like that. I mean, Marvin Harrison Jr. definitely making a case for himself as well. 18 targets is kind of ridiculous. You know, that's a lot. Malik is the youngest player in NFL history with 10 or more receptions, 100 or more receiving yards, and 1 or more touchdown in a game. And he also had 127 of Daniel Jones' 178 yards. Now, I want to talk a little bit about Daniel Jones and about his game, which I thought it was a good game, but I also think that our bar for good quarterback play is just so low. Mm-hmm. Jones was 16 of 28 for 178 yards, 2 touchdowns, no interceptions. He broke that streak of 363 days without having a touchdown, and now he has multiple touchdowns. So if he can go in here this week against the Cleveland Browns, he'll break that 41-game streak that he has right now of not putting together back-to-back games with at least 2 passing touchdowns. QBR was really good, 63.6. The completion percentage is not good, 57%. He had 5 rushes. I thought he did a good job of like taking a couple of plays that looked like they were stuck in the mud and getting some positive yards with his legs. There was one where he bobbled the snap in the red zone. He picked up some more yards. So I like what he did there. You talked about only being sacked 1 time. I thought that was pretty good as well. Some of the things that are concerning, though, is a lot of people are pointing the finger at Brian Dable after this game. I even saw Kid Blue, who was on Bleacher Report recapping the game, pretty much said the reason why the Giants lost this game was because of Brian Dable. And I don't fully agree with that, simply because I think that Brian Dable is calling his type of scheme and his type of philosophy to match what is happening with the personnel on this team. Daniel Jones, man, 0 of 4 on deep shots, and you saw it in the stadium. Yep. 2 or 3 of them things, bro, just rockets over the guy's head. The other 2 of them just short on the throw, late on the throw. The one that was on the far sideline from us, I'm like seeing Malik Neighbors, get open, get past the cornerback and whatnot, and then the ball comes up, and you're just like, God damn. The post route that when Malik lined up on our side of the field, like he's got his man beat by a step, and the ball is just 10 yards over his head. He literally the ball wasn't even past him in flight. And he just stopped like, man, I ain't about to keep running for this shit. Like, what's going on here? Then you got to look at the 81% of Daniel Jones completions being 6 yards or less. He was 3 of 10 on throws 10 yards or more down the field. I thought the Giants' offensive line played a really good game, only allowed 5 pressures in this one, and the Giants were 3 for 3 in the red zone. So you really can't ask for too much more out of Daniel Jones, I guess. But as a fan of this team who's been watching this quarterback for now going on to 6 years, I just want to raise the bar because a lot of people are saying that this was a great game, and I don't see it. I've never heard anybody say a game from a quarterback with 57% completed passes and 178 yards, 2 touchdowns and no interceptions is good, but that's not a great game to me. So
not even close to a great game.
It's not even close, and you're not throwing the ball down the field at all. But this is why I say I'm not pointing the finger at Brian Dable, because he found ways to get Malik Neighbors open underneath. And you guys were playing a lot of single high, and I was looking at y'all like, I don't know what they smoking over there. Should be playing 2 safeties, playing a lot of quarters defense to try to stop Malik to make the big play. But you guys were playing a lot of man-on-man defense, and Brian Dable dialed up some really good plays underneath to get Malik Neighbors running through some traffic, getting some defenders to, bump shoulders and whatnot and create some more space. I thought he did a really good job of that. There were a few moments in this game that were obviously iffy, but mistakes really, came to haunt the New York Giants in this one. You talked about 2 of them. The holding penalty that was on Andrew Phillips in the third quarter, which I went back and I looked at it on the All-22. It's a bullshit call. I got to keep it real, but that really, really kept that drive going. It was a 3-and-out by the Commanders, and then you guys end up on our side of the field and end up getting 3 points from that one. So for me, it's like, I can't point the finger completely at Brian Dable in this one. I thought the Giants played a pretty decent game offensively, but considering the opponent here, I thought the New York Giants could at least come out here and put up 24 points, if they were going to try to win this game. And in the result, the Commanders end up putting up 21 and end up sneaking away and taking this game away from the Giants. We definitely got to talk about the 4th down. Malik Neighbors with the 4th down drop. And I just ask Giants fans to keep the same energy. If you're out here and you're one of those people that think one play is the result of a game, we'll just do that across the board. If you think Saquon Barkley last night was the reason that the Philadelphia Eagles lost the game, then you should keep that same energy and say that Malik Neighbors is the reason why the Giants lost the game.
It's literally the exact same situation, pretty much.
Exactly. But now people are making up excuses that Malik is a rookie, and also saying that it doesn't necessarily end the game. That's another excuse I've been seeing, is that Saquon's would have ended the game. Malik's wouldn't have ended the game.
It would have ended the game.
Because the New York Giants didn't have a kicker. And I think it would have ended the game. I mean, you're looking at that clock ticking down under 2 minutes. Can't remember how much time the was left on the clock for the Commanders to get the ball and come back down the field, but it's not like the Giants were going to score there. The other thing is they would have had to go for 2 if they weren't going to rely on Gillen to take the kick. So that's the last thing that I want to talk about on this, is because you see this thing with, everybody pointing the finger at Brian Dable, and I think the main reason why people are pointing the finger at Brian Dable has to do with what happened with this kicker situation. Now, I saw a homie on Twitter talking about this. We're going to play a little bit of Giant overreaction here on a Tuesday with the beard. And the homie Taskbot said, Dable not having an extra kicker on the roster is the reason the Giants lost. And I just want to show you guys that, to me, this statement is a complete overreaction. And there's no one on the internet saying what I'm about to say to y'all. When you have a player come into the game And let's say he is dealing with some injury issues leading up to the game. Let's say it's like Malik Neighbors' ankle injury before week 1. If Malik ends up getting hurt and you don't have another guy on the roster, obviously wide receiver is a position that has depth, but I don't think people would be looking at that the same. They're pointing the finger at Brian Dable simply because they think that Graham Gano came into this game injured. Now, I went back, I looked at the All-22, I told the Beard I looked at this like 10 times, and I don't like to laugh at an injury, but this shit is kind of funny. It's kind of funny. Now, you tell me, how does a kicker who's hurt kick the ball? Because you got to remember this. We walked into the stadium a little bit late, and I know you guys were 0 for 6 in the red zone and left this game without a touchdown, but the opening kickoff got took back to the house for a touchdown. Now, I want to show you. Make sure you got your screen larger. For the people in the chat, make sure you got your screen on full screen, because I'm going to show you the All-22 version of Graham Gano kicking off the opening kickoff 50 yards down the field, and you tell me if this looks like a guy that looks hurt to you. He's down at the bottom. You see him. Shout out to the graphics department, highlighted and everything. We're going to zoom in a pinch here. Dude.
Somebody hit him with a slingshot.
Something bit me. That's what I was thinking about, was Forrest Gump. Now, before I influence y'all too much, let's watch it one more time. Let's watch it one more time.
That's definitely
I hate that we're laughing at Graham Gano like this. I told the Beard, right, I said, yo, this is how you would get hurt, like with a hamstring injury on the basketball court or something. But I hate that we're laughing this hard. Like, I do pray to God that Graham Gano gets healthy. He is on IR. Get well, my brother, get well. But let's watch this one more time.
This is like a white guy who's trying to run a 40-yard dash with the guys in the hood in the middle of the street at like 11 o'clock at night.
You thought you was fast. Because right here, you see him. He tried to turn the Jets on a little bit. Yep. Right there. You're doing too much.
Oh, the way he goes down, too. Like, it's almost like the cloud from Apollo just kind of reached out onto the field and pulled it by the leg.
Like, I just want to know, now that y'all see that All-22, right? That does not look like a hurt kicker to me. He boots the ball to the goal line, and then he sees Austin Eckler getting ready to take this shit to the house. He tried to make a play. And as a football player, I don't blame him for doing that. But that can happen to anybody. When you try to, that's when the hamstring and the groin gets fucked up, is when you try to go past 100%. You try to turn it up to 105. And then your hamstring gave out on you. Now, I know he was dealing with the groin injury and all that. But, like, from the Brian Dable perspective, when you see Graham Gano at practice looking like he looked on that opening kickoff, how can we blame Brian Dable?
It's interesting you say that, because I did not think about it from that perspective until I heard you mention that on Giant Overreaction, when you were like, if a player looks like he can play and the coaches are looking at them right before we get to that situation, there's no way that they go into that game in the position that they were in unless they knew 100% that he was good to go, right? Like, I didn't even think about it, because it's so easy when you're in the heat of the moment to just be like, this idiot, because they kind of like put it in that way for you to look at it too, especially when they're like, they didn't even keep the total amount of people that they could keep on the roster. Like, they had an empty roster slot.
Empty roster spot.
And so they slid that. They slid that in there, so they're like just kind of they're giving you all the ammunition you need to blame Brian Dable, right?
Right, man.
But when you look at it from the way that you said it, it's kind of like, you got to be a full-blown should not have a job idiot to be like, our kicker's hurt. We got an extra spot. We're not going to bring another kicker. Like, it's too bad to actually be that situation. So, I mean, you could really, I'd give it like a 5%, like where you're like, you should be filling your roster, though. Let's just be honest with you. I mean, like, it's kind of weird not to. I don't know how often that happens in the NFL. Like, but if it was that bad, you would have known it. And I mean, you saw him. The dude was out there. He kicked the booming kick. He ran. He kicked the entire pregame warm-ups too. Like, there was no talk about him missing field goals or anything in the warm-ups. Like,
outside of Dan Duggan did say that Graham Gano looked a little bit suspect and a little limpy kind of during the warm-ups. And I think that report is kind of why a lot of Giants fans and content creators are reporting it the way that they are. But I just got to use my eyeballs, man. Like, that does not look like a guy that can't kick an extra point. Now, I did see John May. John May made a really good point in the chat here, and this is what I thought after the first one. How in the fuck is Gillen shanking extra points? I talked about this on the overreaction. Like, you're kicking every day at practice. They don't ask you to tackle. They don't ask you to do too much running. You're just holding and kicking. And you would think just being around it, like, bro, like, the way he shanked the first extra point is like how me or you would shank an extra point. Like, got no lift, no, just straight to the right, just a terrible kick. And John May, I'm with you on that, bro. Like, I don't understand how he's missing extra points. And they didn't even give him an opportunity to kick another one. So I think you could point to Brian Dable on that, because I would have allowed Jamie Gillen to kick another one.
See, not even just that, but like, if you're gonna put the blame on Dable and even the special teams coach, right? You should be prepared. I heard you talk about this too. You should be prepared for a situation like this, right?
Yeah.
Like you talked about it. We've seen Ocho Cinco. We've seen running backs. We've seen all types, safeties, corners. There's always a guy that's like like you got an emergency quarterback, like a guy who plays wide receiver, who played a quarterback in high school.
You guys last year.
You know what I'm saying?
2 years ago.
Yeah, like you got a guy, you got a plan for that. You know what I'm saying? Like,
it used to be Brian Mitchell for y'all back in the day.
Oh yeah, because there's guys who play quarterback. I mean, there's guys these are world class athletes. It's not you and me going up to kick an extra point. Like, you should have a guy. You should have a couple of guys who can kick 20-yard field goals if need be.
Absolutely.
Like, that's the only like malpractice I think that we should really talk about. I think the other aspect of it is a lot of conspiracy kind of vibes,
Yeah, and
sort
I
of
just
situation.
think people kind of took it out of context, and me and Taskbot were kind of joking about this a little bit. I said, now, what if your long snapper coming into the game has, like, some kind of wrist injury or something like that, but he, says he can play, he looks good in practice, and then when you get to the game, his wrist is not allowing him to do what he does. He re-aggravates or something. Are we supposed to put another long snapper on the 53-man roster?
No, you have a guy that can do that.
My man Tazbob was like, yeah, we should do that. I laughed at it. It was kind of funny, man. But, like, still, nonetheless, I just think, like, because of the injury history at certain different positions with the New York Giants, people are looking at this some kind of way, because we saw it with Adoree Jackson when they tried to put him at the punt returner position and then he got hurt. We saw this with Graham Gano last year, where he missed a game-winning kick because of this. It was like maybe a 47-yarder or something like that. And he came into that game, with some hamstring or with some groin tightness or something like that, and he couldn't make the kick. So I think that, like, people just think that it's more of the same, and I do feel them on that part of the, the equation.
Yeah. So it's an interesting outcome, and it was the icing on a cake for a giant cake of weirdness in this game.
Yeah, it's your birthday. You in first place. You in first place.
Big shout out to Word in the chat with the $1.99 super chat. Says, hey, man, I'm happy for the Beards Commanders. Thank you. I appreciate that. It's not going to be a lot of these probably for the rest of the season, but like.
Hey, y'all might get another one against us.
Hey, I was going to say, shout out to Authentic for bringing all the receipts to the table of the people who said that they were going to sweep us
Oh, yeah.
year.
I keep them receipts. I went on a receipt rampage. I went through my books real quick and had to be like, why do y'all keep thinking we going to sweep them? It's going to come to an end at some point.
That was good. I appreciate that. Big shout out to Door Gunner with a $2 super chat. Says, last Giants touchdown drive. I wanted to say retweeted. Last Giants touchdown drive, right tackle moved early on third down. There we go.
I thought I saw that too.
Is that the one you thought we saw in the game?
Yeah, when we were there, I was like, that looked like offsides, man. It looked like a false start. Like, missed it. They missed it,
No, it happens. Trust me. There's a lot of misses going on.
Yeah, we've been there for a major one. The Dexter Lawrence offsides. Can't forget that one.
Oh, that'll go down in history. Big shout out to Matt for the $4.99 super chat. Says, my only problem with the Gano issue is, why not have Gillian kick off anyways if Gano is dealing with injuries?
It's a good point right there. That is a good point, because a lot of people are saying that, like, why was Graham Gano running after the returner? You got to, man. It's football. So being with this whole landing zone thing too, that you don't really have to kick it so far anymore to try to get the touchback, trying to land the ball in the landing zone. Matt makes a great point here. That would have been actually a really good idea to have, but I don't know how Gillen kicks the ball considering the way those extra points look. But dog, you're an NFL punter. You should be able to kick a football, man. Like, come on, what's going on, dog?
So furious about that.
Makes no sense, yo.
We appreciate it. 4.99 says super chat. Matt, thank you very much, my friend.
Hell yeah, man. Big shout out to Matt, man. Big shout out to all y'all for donating to the channel. Y'all know that goes a long way. So I was going to do one more segment on this game, but I'm going to wait till next week. I think it'll be a little bit too early to talk about Brian Dable being fired or anything like that. So we're going to save some of that stuff for next week. I'm looking forward to talking about this next game. All three of these games were just very interesting. And of all the NFC East games this week, the Dallas Cowboys game was the most surprising, and the Saints straight up dog walked them. I mean, just straight up dog walked them. So let's go ahead and get off into this one, man, and talk about those New Orleans Saints taking on some of y'all in the chats, Dallas Cowboys. All right, Beard, let's be on the clock. We're going to try to get everybody out of here by 8:30 on this one. I'm going to try to fly through this one. The Saints improved to 2-0. Dallas Cowboys fall to 1-1. The Saints just beat the brakes off these Dallas Cowboys, 44-19, while the Cowboys were favored by 6.5. The Cowboys had won 16 straight regular season home games dating back to last season. That streak is now over. The first regular season loss at home since September 11th, 2022. Saints came into this one 4-5 on the road last year. Saints have now won 3 of their last road games in a row. They lost 5 road games in a row before this 3-game streak, so they're definitely getting it together here. And the Cowboys and Dak Prescott, we said this on the show, last preview show, they play best with the lead. And that goes for most quarterbacks, to be honest, but I feel like very much in particular for Dak Prescott. 23 to lead, 23 or 20-3 lead last week, before beating the Browns 33-17. And in this one, definitely did not get out to an early lead. Derek Carr and this Saints offense were on fire. The goal was to get pressure all over Derek Carr, and they did not do that in this game. Talked about the statistics from last week where DeMarvion, Overshown, Micah Parsons, and Eric Kendricks, week 1 combined for 29 tackles, 13 quarterback hits, 6 TFLs, and 6 sacks. In week 2, they had 5 pressures, 1 quarterback hit, 3 quarterback hurries, and just 1 sack. And the crazy part about this is Micah Parsons had 3 of the 5 pressures. So the rest of you jokers out there are not doing your job. The New Orleans Saints, I talked about the defense a lot in that game that, for the last 10 years that defense has been playing some really good football under Dennis Allen. They created a really good game plan of one hand washes the other in this one. First-year Saints offensive coordinator Clint Kubiak, who's been around for a long time, combined with the defensive-minded head coach and Dennis Allen, definitely did their thing in this game. And I'm going to talk about the offense first real quick. Kubiak, the passing game was just perfect in this game. These are the kind of games that if you're playing quarterback, you look back at the stat box and you're just like, God damn, I don't even know how I lit it up like that, because Derek Carr barely threw the ball in this
16 times.
Just 16 throws. And Kubiak, he used to be the passing game coordinator for the San Francisco 49ers last year, and we know all about that offense. That's a great offense. They relied on shut the fuck up and run the damn ball, okay? They protected the quarterback, and they schemed up the big plays that the Beard was talking about. We've been big fans of Rashid Shaheed over here for a long time. I always get his name a little messed up, like, it's Rashid and then it's Shaheed, right? So I don't know if the double E's be in the first name or be in the last name, and I'm always spelling it wrong. But the RTDB was in full effect in this one. Kamara, 20 rushes for 115 yards, 3 touchdowns. Saints rushed for 190 yards as a team, 4.9 yards per carry as a team. All those big plays they had, which really got them out to an early lead in this one, the 57-yard touchdown on the screen to Kamara, Olave's big 39-yard reception, and Rashid Shaheed's 70-yard touchdown, which have we seen a better throw this year? I don't think we have.
What a basket.
Derek Carr just put that ball right on the money. There were some people in the Twitter space with me 2 weeks ago talking about, I don't want Derek Carr on the New York Giants. I'm like, man, the way he's playing right now, this dude is lighting it up. And Rashid Shaheed ended with 4 receptions, 96 yards, 1 touchdown. Just 10 targets to their wide receivers, and you putting up over 40 points is kind of ridiculous. And I want to talk about Derek Carr just a little bit here. Really good day. You talked about his 16 throws, just 11 completions for 243 yards, 2 touchdowns, 1 rushing touchdown as well. Had the 1 interception across the middle that was a little bit strange. There was a good play by the Cowboys. He had just 23 attempts last week. He's averaging 14.2 yards per pass. His QBR has been over 80 in both games. His quarterback rating has been over 125 in both games. He's only been sacked 1 time in each game. They have scored 91 points in their first 2 games. It's the 4th most in NFL history in your first 2 games. Derek Carr has the most passing touchdowns in the NFL right now at 5. So big shout out to them, man. They balled out on the offensive side of the ball. Now, real briefly with their defense, they held the Cowboys to just 19 points. They stopped the run. The Cowboys only rushed for 68 yards in this one. You know, bend, don't break. What I'm starting to learn is that only works when your offense is scoring touchdowns. Mm-hmm. You got to have it. This is why I called this a one-hand wash the other type of game plan. And I think we overlook the importance of your offensive game plan matching your defensive game plan and fusing that to make a full game plan for the whole entire game. So much we look at what the Giants do, at least from our perspective, and we go, Brian Dable's going to work on his thing, Shane Bowen's going to work on his thing. But what about controlling the clock together and realizing that you got to stop the big plays that's going to help your offense be able to run a type of style of offense that really relied on Alvin Kamara in a major way in this game. And Alvin Kamara is on a revenge tour right now, and I'm here for it. The Saints held the Cowboys to 0 for 3 in the red zone. They went for a couple early 4th downs in this one, too, that I thought were a little bit questionable. And they got pressure on Dak Prescott, which is extremely difficult. 17 total pressures, 3 sacks, 13 quarterback hurries, 0 quarterback hits, and we know Dak Prescott gets that ball out of his hand fast. And Dak had 2 turnover-worthy plays in this one. He finished the day with some numbers that look okay outside of the 2 turnovers. 27 of 39 for 293 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. And before I talk about some of these missed opportunities, what you think about this game? I know you were smiling ear to ear to see the Dallas Cowboys lose, even though we picked them. Mm-hmm. But to be sitting at the top of the division now with the Dallas Cowboys kind of in struggle mode, how you feeling about this matchup here?
It was interesting, to say the least. And I was telling Authentic before we went on the air that this was the one game I didn't really get to watch because, you know, Eagles played Monday night. We were at the game for the Giants and the Commanders. So I kind of went back and watched this because the scoreboard, I was like, how does this game unfold if the scoreboard looks like this in the end, right? And so much of what we talked about in the preview show on Thursday happened here. Kamara off to a hot start, opens up the big play to Shaheed. Cowboys, Authentic mentioned, can't play from behind as good as they play it ahead. The Cowboys they were driving the ball, but they couldn't finish. And this is what I talked about earlier in the show in the Eagles game about how, you know, a lot of these teams that end up losing in this game could not find ways to finish drives. And the Dallas Cowboys, their first 2 possessions, they kick field goals. Saints' first 2 possessions, they score touchdowns. You're already putting yourself in a position where now your back is kind of against the wall. Even though you're technically only down by 1 possession, your back is against the wall because you're feeling the pressure. And I just thought that if you look at Kamara and Christian McCaffrey side by side since they've been in the league, they're almost identical.
Yeah,
but Kamara
less volume and touches from Kamara. That's about it.
You don't get Kamara doesn't get the same amount of love as McCaffrey does, and I think that this is just seeing what they're doing in this offense, the way that they're moving, the big plays, the time of possession, the run to pass. Like, you're getting huge plays from your passing game, but your running game is kind of carrying you at this point to a certain degree. So for me, like, those are the things that are really interesting to watch. You know, the interception before the half for Dallas really killed them because they had an opportunity to really change. And this is something that I'm huge on. I am huge on the big plays and how you finish halves and what it sets up for in the second half. I mentioned this to Authentic when we were at the game. I was like, and y'all about to get the ball back in the second half, right?
That's why that fumble was so huge. Oh.
So critical. So that interception was, not only was it bad because now, you know, you've taken away your opportunity to score, but the Saints go down and score a touchdown on that interception. Dallas does a good job of getting down the field, though, after that score. But once again, they kick a field goal, and the Saints are scoring touchdowns. The problem is you can score points, But you got to be able to at least either hold them to a field goal or you got to score touchdowns. These field goals are just not keeping up with the Saints at this point. So that was really critical right there. I thought that in the third quarter, the red zone for the Cowboys, there were some critical mistakes there. You know, they weren't able to capitalize on the red zone in the third quarter. And then, you know, Carr throws that interception. The game is kind of out of reach, but I'm not putting it past it because I've seen Dallas put up a lot of points in this offensive scheme in a short amount of time. But then Dak goes and throws the interception right after that. So it's like when you're in this situation, you cannot make mistakes like that. And you gotta, if you want to battle back, you gotta go blow for blow. And Dallas just couldn't find a way to do that. And a lot of that has to do with their inability to run. I don't. The Cowboys, it's tough because it's like we talked about this. I feel like in every game, right? Who's to blame? I mean,
Yeah.
It's so easy for everybody to point the finger at Dak and point the finger at the running game, and then it's very easy to be like, "Oh, the defense." You know what I'm saying? But this is just an all around ass whooping. Like there was like nobody really did what they were supposed to do. I mean, CeeDee Lamb. You know, he had his nice touchdown catch, but outside of that, I think he only had, what do you have, 4 catches in this game?
I don't got his numbers in front of me.
And so, but I did want to say that Tolbert and Schoonmaker, yeah, he had 4 catches for 90 yards and 1 touchdown. CeeDee Lamb did. But I thought Tolbert stepped. This is the thing that we kind of talked about with the Eagles and we talked about with the Cowboys. I was like, Brandon Cooks is 30. They're going to need another guy. I thought Tolbert stepped up in this game, and so did Shoemaker. You know, now they don't have Ferguson, so they needed him. He made a couple of good catches.
They need Jake Ferguson bad.
Yeah, but it's just there's a lot of – it's like this in every team in the NFC East. There are holes. There's not a dominance like there has been previously. Like we thought the Cowboys defense after that first game, you know, you was rolling off those individual stats looking like team defensive stats. But in this game, it just at home too, bro. This was at home.
And the Saints brought that really good game plan that didn't allow them to pin their ears back and get after him.
Yeah.
You know, Derek Carr throwing the ball 16 times. It's like, okay, well, how many pressures are you going to get when the quarterback's only throwing it that many times? 11 completions should not kick your ass the way that it did in this game. I like that you brought up Tolbert. He made the big play that kind of kept him in late in the third quarter on the right sideline. I mean, the ball was underthrown by Dak Prescott. And what a catch, right? Like, but you talked about some missed opportunities, and I just want to touch on that just a little bit. So Ezekiel Elliott and Rico Dowdle, they have to address, you know, they're badly needing Dalvin Cook to like get in the lineup or just to have something different because Zeke was terrible in this game. 2.7 yards per carry, 6 rushes for 16 yards. He got half of those yards on one attempt. Play. Like, dude, that's not going to get it done. And all they really got is CeeDee Lamb in the wide receiver department. You talked about Tolbert, who made a couple of plays and whatnot. He's a very similar style to Kevontae Turpin, who I suggested that the Cowboys get Kevontae Turpin involved in the offense, but just the way they use him, it just doesn't work. And he's really not a good route runner, so you can't have him going down the field, and you can't have him, like, in the game on a lot of snaps either. You can't have a guy out there that's not running great routes. But to me, in a lot of games, you give away a game ball. And in this game, I would take a player's helmet away. There was one player. I don't put this game on Dak Prescott at all, actually. I put this game on their wide receiver, Jalen Brooks, number 83, okay? And there's 2 major mistakes that this guy made in this game. It's 14-3 to start the second quarter. You talked about the Saints scoring the first 2 touchdowns and the Dallas Cowboys coming down and only getting 3 on their first 2 trips. They run a reverse to Brandon Cooks, and it's on second down, and it's wide open, bro. And this dude, like, I'm like, he's about to just walk into the end zone. Jalen Brooks makes a good job of, like, engaging the block. But, man, it looked like a video game. Like, you know when computer just default gets you up off the block? Just threw this man to the side and then made the tackle. And then the Dallas Cowboys, they ended up having to settle for 3. So, and Dak got sacked on third down. So you're looking at now, rather than it being 14-10 early on in this game in the second quarter, it's now 14-6. And you're giving the ball back to the Saints. That was the drive where Alvin Kamara took the screenplay to the house. And he showed he's still got some wheels, man. That dude is fast as hell. He went from the left side of the field all the way to the right and just burnt the whole entire Cowboys defense. So now, instead of looking at a situation where let's say they get that score, and it's if you could have got a touchdown, it would have been 21-10. Instead, you're looking at 21-6, and there's still time left in the first half here. The second one, Dak was trying to answer before the half, and you talked about that interception. Cowboys at midfield, it's now 28-13 because the Saints have scored another touchdown. And Jalen Brooks runs a little decent route, wins inside. Dak's like, okay, I got my guy. Goes to load to throw the ball up. This joker slips and falls on the ground. Paulson Adebo intercepts the ball. Now, the Cowboys were driving down the field. It was like somewhere around like midfield, I believe it was, maybe around like the 40.
Yeah, 40.
Paulson Adebo gets the interception. He returns it all the way back to the Dallas Cowboys 20. Saints take over. They're in the red zone. You get the big catch from Olave, the quarterback sneak from Derek Carr. Dog, this game is over now. So instead of a situation where when Dak Prescott's driving down there and you could possibly get this game to 28-20, you end up going into the half 35-16. At that point, it was 35-13. Dak did a good job of getting them down the field, like you said, and they can't get a touchdown. At that point, Dak was playing really good football. Before the interception, he was 12 of 14 for 133 yards and 1 touchdown, no interceptions. And then he ends up throwing that pick. And that pick is not on him. I hate to say it. The NFL is a game that is based on timing.
Yeah.
And when your wide receiver goes down, the Giants fans know all about when it happened with Daniel Jones, with David Sills. It was almost the exact, oh, no, it was a similar type of route. No, it was a dig. It was a dig route, a deep dig route. And as soon as he's breaking inside, he falls to the ground. All of that happened before halftime. And then it's 35-16 at the half. Come on, game's over at that point, man. Dallas Cowboys trying to battle back. They're going for it on fourth down every damn time in the second half, especially in the fourth quarter. And then eventually they just waved the white flag, brought in Cooper Rush, and put Dak Prescott on the sidelines with like 6-7 minutes left in the game. Game's over at that point. And to me, this doesn't really show you what these two teams are about. One, the Dallas Cowboys had no real experience in the regular season this year in the red zone. Last week, they were 100%. They only had one red zone trip last week against the Browns, and they beat them in devastating fashion. Game was never even close. In this game, their defense really didn't give them a chance because of the big plays. Like when you just look at the box score and you look at the amount of attempts from the quarterback and you look at the amount of attempts from the running back, it almost like it don't make sense.
It's one of those games where it's like, if somebody just does the box score and then tries to come on and recap the game, like they'd be so off.
Yeah, you'd be so off. And the Saints really won this game in the first half. And Clint Kubiak, big kudos to you, bro. Yeah. Big kudos to you, because we knew the defense with Dennis Allen was going to bring the heat. We knew they were going to give the Dallas Cowboys a tough time. That defense is really damn good, man. The secondary is strong. Their defensive front is strong.
They didn't even have Lattimore in this game either, I don't think.
Right. Honey Badger was out there. He was on the injury report, but he was out there making plays, man. And the Saints are going to be a tough team. And a lot of people thought that the South was going to be, one of the
worst
divisions, right?
Yeah. Like, did you see CeeDee Lamb got rocked in this game too?
Oh my God, he got rocked. That is exactly why you don't try to throw the go and the fade ball against middle of the field open. That's how you get your wide receivers.
Let me ask you this. How come that wasn't a penalty? I thought immediately that would have been a penalty.
I think because he didn't lead with his helmet, and he's not, at that point, he's really not defenseless, I don't think, because, like, cover two situation, I mean, I don't know what you would do. I mean, I think if he, like, rocked him, maybe they would have thought about it. But, yeah, it was a pretty big hit, man. Like, it was a pretty big hit. It reminded me of the situation in preseason against the Texans. Or no, it was was it the Texans or the Lions where Malik Neighbors got hit? Whichever preseason game that was, where we threw the fade route, and it was a pretty good ball, but Malik juggled it. And if the timing on that is not perfect from the quarterback or the wide receiver, somebody going to be on that ESPN jacked up.
Yeah, it was quite the hit. There was a few of those in there. Malik Neighbors got rocked by Luvu.
That was a big hit in our game. He got right back up though, man. He's a strong kid.
But man, yeah, tough one for the Cowboys. Moving forward, though, like on any of these games, I'm not ready to push the panic button on anybody. I mean, I've seen people already talking about playoff percentages. I've seen people talking about MVPs through week 2.
You got to at 0-2 though. For the rest of it, 1-1 and all that, 2-0. Nah, I'm not talking about it. But 0-2, man, your chances under 2%. And there's some 0-2 teams that I don't know who's going to get there. Bengals, Ravens, it's not looking good. And I'm going to give y'all a little bit of hint for the preview show coming up on Thursday. I'm leaning towards picking those Commanders.
I am not. I'll give you that right now.
I'm leaning towards picking those Commanders. Bengals don't impress me. And the Patriots ain't a good team. I don't know how they walked out winning that game. And then what was this one this past week that came down to the wire for them that they lost?
Chiefs.
Against the Chiefs. And Patrick Mahomes did not play a good game in that one.
2 picks.
Yeah.
That pass interference call, which was a pass interference, by the way. I know a lot of people out there are like, oh, the Chiefs always get the calls and the script. And I'm just
people are always definitely
he was
talking
definitely
about that.
there early. You know what I'm saying? A couple of comments here from the lovely people in the chat. Big shout out to David for the $1.99 super chat. In Cam Ward we trust.
I'm trying to put him on.
New York Giants.
Trying to put him on, bro. Trying to put him on, bro. I've been talking about Cam Ward for 3 years now, man.
We are big Cam Ward guys over here. Big shout out to Cam Ward. Look great again on Saturday.
I told Benny about Cam Ward today. Benny was like, "So what y'all gonna do? Get Shadur? Nah, bro. Cam Ward. I didn't even say a word. I just gave him a picture with Cam Ward. Like,
that is the word. It's the Cam word.
Yeah, it's definitely.
Big shout out to Elias Witzkovich with the $1.99 super chat. Says still early, but would you take Kubiak as a head coach?
I'd absolutely consider it. You know, that's one department that I can't sit up here and fake like I'm knowing which head coach I would want for the New York Giants to go after. I see a lot of people talking about different names from Mike Vrabel, Bill Belichick, a bunch of different guys. Like, listen, we've been terrible at hiring coaches. John Mara, if this don't work out with Brian Daboll and the rest of his coaching staff, he needs to bring in a consultant or somebody that's going to get us in the right direction, because that will now have been, 4 straight head coaches that have failed in the New York Giants front office. Not a good look, from McAdoo to Pat Shurmur to Joe Judge to now with Brian Daboll. So that's on them. They got to figure it out. Love what I saw from Kubiak in this game. I think his personnel matches what he's trying to do over there. They got a star running back. They have a great running back, too, over there as well. Love the wide receiver core with Chris Olave, Rashid Shaheed. Like, quarterback is serviceable for sure with Derek Carr. Defense is stout, been stout. And right now, the New York Giants don't really have any of those things, to be honest. We got a wide receiver 1, and that's about it. This defensive front that we thought was going to be whatever people thought it was going to be ain't it. So, I think we got a lot of rebuilding to do. And when it comes time for that trade deadline, there's going to be a lot of decisions to make, not only with the personnel, but with the coaching staff as well.
If there's one thing that I think I've learned, because we're always learning. What we do here and what we've been doing is you're always learning, right? And I've learned that it is not as much of who you hire as your head coach as much as it is who that head coach is bringing in with him. Like, I think I've really grown to have a understanding and passion for filling out a staff at the NFL level is so important. Like, you really got to have a good mesh of guys. And I think you talking about the game plan between Dennis Allen and Kubiak is a prime example. You got to have guys like that are bringing in the right coaching staff for that, to have a inclusive philosophy on how to win football games. And I think that's what's super important in today's NFL, more so than it was back in the day.
Yeah. Too often people separate the 2 or the 3 phases of the game. You got to have that cohesion and galvanize all of that. So, yeah, I'm definitely with you on that. That's a really good point.
Big shout out to our guy, speaking of the devil, Mr. Benny, with the $9.99 super chat. Says, y'all need to record the best soundbite from the beard to place at the end of the show, right before the credits roll, or at the end. Laugh out loud. You should have a guy.
You shouldn't have a guy.
Hail.
doing that little hail right there.
Appreciate you as always, Benny.
Yeah, big shout out to Benny one time, man. And big shout out to the chat, man. This was a good vibe today. Like, these early portions of the season, man, are just very intriguing. And, the things that you thought coming in from the summer of what teams are going to be dominant. And I'm glad that this year there's been a lot of turnover here as far as, like, the teams, at least through 2 weeks, at the top of each division right now, and the teams that are excelling. I mean, nobody could have imagined that the Commanders would be number 1 in the NFC East after 2 weeks. And we don't know how long that's going to, it might be short-lived. It might last for a while, but you got a rookie quarterback who's learning on the job, and he looks to be the best rookie quarterback in the entire class right now. And I think that teams like the Atlanta Falcons and, teams that did it in the past, like the Kansas City Chiefs, going from Alex Smith to Patrick Mahomes and even Lamar Jackson, who didn't start his first game, those guys have a little bit of an advantage being able to sit on an NFL sideline before they get in the game. But we're seeing it with Bryce Young. We're seeing it with Caleb Williams over there struggling.
Will Levis
He's 0
this
for
year a
9
little bit too.
on passes over 20 yards right now. And he looks worse than Justin Fields looked over there, if you ask me. And Justin Fields, a guy who now got to sit for a little bit, going to the offseason not knowing that he was going to be a starter, gets the job because of an injury, and 2 weeks in, they're sitting at 2-0. Really good game plans. He's not playing great ball, but he's a guy that I've been rooting for. We saw a guy like Malik Willis who sat the bench and came out here with the Packers and gets a W in his first game with the Packers after only being there for like 2-3 weeks, man, at max. And I got to commend these coaches who understand the game on that level, like Matt LaFleur designing a totally different game plan for Malik Willis than he designs for me is very, very commendable, right? Because they designed a running type of philosophy for Malik Willis. He only threw the ball 14 times in that game, and they used his legs to win that game, and they gave the ball to Josh Jacobs like 30-plus times. And y'all know, man, until that casket dips, it's RTDB. I don't care what nobody says about contracts. You got to find a way to run the ball. And we can find that guy in the 4th, 5th round and all that. Doesn't seem to be the case all the time. We can't just look at the jackpot winners and think that that's how money works.
Yeah. Did you see where the center threw up on the ball, the Malik Willis?
Yeah, I did see that. And he caught the snap.
They were like, why did he throw it?
Ball.
He's like, dude, he threw up on the ball. I couldn't throw it.
I would have threw the ball right back at him. What the fuck is you doing, bro? Straight Willie beaming, man. But definitely a good vibe, man. Make sure y'all pull up on Thursday. We're going to be doing the preview show. I'm extremely excited for week 3 because this is a defining week. This is when teams start to kind of separate from the pack here. And I told y'all I'm kind of leaning towards, the Washington Commanders this week. And the New York Giants are going to be taking on the Browns. And I think people are kind of sleeping on that Cleveland Browns offense right now, thinking that Deshaun Watson is playing really terrible football and he's not the same guy. Just go look at some of them condensed games or go look at some of that all-22. A lot of what's going on over there is not really on him. You got Amari Cooper dropping 2 big touchdowns in back-to-back weeks. And Deshaun Watson made some throws where I was like, man, he had one where he escaped the pocket, rolled to his left, and threw a dart like 14 yards down the field. So I think that we're definitely going to have a tall task for us, especially going up against Myles Garrett and the rest of that defense. And then the Washington Commanders, y'all got the Bengals this week. I like the matchup. Oh, y'all are Saints.
No, Eagles Saints.
Oh, Eagles Saints. Okay, yeah, I thought y'all had the Bengals. Yeah. I think the Eagles are going to get back on track. You did see some improvements with the Eagles going from week 1 to week 2, but I think the biggest question mark is no A.J. Brown again. So that's going to be a tough hurdle to get over for the Philadelphia Eagles. And Nick Sirianni, man, he could have walked away with a win in this one, but I'm excited for week 3. Week 3 is going to be lit. I will be on Bleacher Report tomorrow at 4 p.m. doing a bit of a teaser for the Browns game and also kind of just recapping and re-talking about some of the things we talked about today about the Giants and the Commanders. But I know it's got to be really good, man, for Washington Commanders fans right now. Like, the quarterback is ascending from game to game. He's getting better on the job, and you can't say that for any other rookie quarterback in the league right now. So things looking up.
Yeah, I'm excited. Listen, I'm as happy as could be right now. Like, and I'm in a reasonable happiness. I feel like somebody said that they can't say this right now. I'm gonna say it. We got a guy. We got a quarterback.
Yeah, I think you got a guy.
I'm good with that.
Yeah, I think you got a guy, man. And I think y'all are catching the Bengals at the perfect time. Maybe week 2 would have been better. But, like, they're struggling. They've never been a really good team in the first 2 weeks of the season. I think it's been in the last 3 seasons.
I think so.
Maybe is it the last 3 seasons or was it the last 4? Maybe it was the last 4 seasons. They were 1-9 or something like that in their first 2 games. So this is how you want to catch them slipping, man. But any last words for the people before we get them up out of here?
Appreciate all the love and all the support. Shout out to everybody in the chat. Without you guys, we would not be able to do this. Make sure you guys check out Authentic on Bleacher Report tomorrow. You guys can always find the links for the Bleacher Report stuff if you follow us on Twitter. We're always tweeting those out, so make sure you guys check him out. And, we'll be back on Thursday with some exciting games. And I'm on Monday night this week, too.
Ooh, prime time.
Introducing Jaden Daniels to the world, baby.
Love it. I hope he has a good game. I'm rooting for the kid. I ain't gonna lie. As long as he's not playing against my New York Giants, I'm rooting for him, man. But definitely a vibe today, man. This was a great recap. I'm just more and more we do these shows, I'm looking forward to not only breaking down my team, but also just breaking down the rest of these squads in the NFC East, man. And like the Beard said, if y'all want to check out the vibes and continue the conversation, you can check us out on Twitter. He's at Tim Walk on Water 2. I'm at Authentic. Appreciate everybody for being here today, man, for this show, man. These just every year is getting better and better, and I really enjoy being here in this, like I called it the other day, this small corner of the internet called Authentic and the Beard. And y'all know how we end every show over here, man. Keep raising that bar, keep living those dreams, because the universe flows in Technicolor and surround sound, and a life without dreams is a life that's black and white, y'all. Y'all enjoy the rest of y'all evening. Catch me tomorrow on Bleacher Report. If not, we'll see y'all here, same time on Thursday for the preview show for Week 3. Y'all be good. Peace.
Peace.